Hello everyone. How is everyone doing today? So, I wanted to first address that I know these are all crazy times right now, and I hope everyone is safe and sound, and I hope everyone is staying healthy. And I know everyone's a little scared and concerned right now, as am I. With that said, though, I want you all to understand that it's important to be realistic, and it's important to understand that these are historically crazy times. However, it's important to also to look at the light at the end of the tunnel and to see that you guys can learn anything from any experience. And so we can apply that here by saying that this is the rest of um, this lesson will be an online course. And I have a whole bunch of videos for you guys to use. And this will be an online course that you guys can apply the skills that you learn in paying attention and really having effective learning through an online course. For instance, if you have a high school online course, or if you learn another language in an online course, or even in a college online course. So let's get started. So I wanted to go back to the basics in AP style writing and go over with you one more time the key principles of why AP style is important and the key principles of AP style and who uses it and why it's effective. AP style is a form of writing that most United States journalists and public relations professionals use, along with marketers. Along with that, so to go along with that, all of the guidelines are published in the Associated Press Style Book, which is updated constantly. So think of the Associated Press Style Book as the manual for AP style. If you guys ever do pursue a career in public relations, which is a vast field, everybody needs PR, right? Especially in social media. If you can do PR with, remember, like law, you can do PR with sports, science, whatever you can think of. Everybody needs a PR professional. Well, all of these people, they need a manual for AP style on how to write effectively, okay? Why use AP style? Well, it's a requirement in print journalism, and it's pretty much a requirement in PR and marketing, okay? So there's that. Following AP style provides consistently throughout news media. It's considered the golden standard for news writing. Ages. So now we're going to get into some key principles of AP style. You always want to use numerals when writing ages. That usually goes without saying. However, if you did not know that already, okay, if I were to say my mom is 42, then you would not write out the word 42. You would just say it in numerals. If the age is used in an adjective or in the place of a noun, it is hyphenated. For instance, an 18-year-old student. And you guys can see other examples there. Composition titles. Do not ever italicize magazine or newspaper titles. Just capitalize them, okay? What does italicize mean? Well, if you see that italicized word there, notice how it's slanted and looks kind of funky. That's what italicize means, okay? Use quotation marks for the titles of books, video games, movies, TV shows, works of art, speeches, and song titles. Okay, so you guys can see some examples there. And notice how the period is inside of the quote. We'll talk about more of that later, okay? Dates. So whenever you guys are writing a feature story or any article in general, dates are extremely important to talk about in journalism, because if you guys are the news for our school, people want to know dates, right? People want to know what's coming up. So dates are always written as numerals. Whenever you're saying dates and you're writing it out, you never use the word TH. What does that mean? Well, TH is not a word, excuse me, but you never use TH. So if I were to say April 20th, you just say out when you're writing April 20 and period, okay? And then if I were to say November 20th, I would just abbreviate November and I would say 20 with the period. Does that make sense? Because some months are abbreviated, as you see here in the PowerPoint, okay? Some are not. So if it's September, November, December, if they're long months, then you abbreviate it, okay? But May, June, and July are not, okay? So that's nice to know. However, here's the catch-22. If you're just saying the month and not the date, then you write out the word. For instance, if I were to say that Harvest Festival is in October, you write out the word October and you don't abbreviate it, okay? But if I were to say Harvest Festival is on October 23rd, then you're going to abbreviate October and using numerals 23rd, okay? But just 23. Don't say the RD. Does that make sense for everybody? We'll get into examples in a second. So the board meeting took place on November 14th. Notice how November is abbreviated because it has the date right afterwards, and 14th TH is not used. So November is abbreviated there. But however, it is cold in January. January doesn't have a specific date after that, so that's why January is written out. Tax Day is April 15th. Same concept goes for there. So when we're talking about money, okay, so there's two things to really know when we're talking about money. If we're talking about anything that's greater than $1, you always want to put the dollar sign before the number. And then apart from that, if we're talking about cents, you always write out the word cents. Okay, so always written as numerals with the dollar sign used beforehand. You guys see some examples there. So like I just said, you spell out the word cents, okay? Names. When mentioning a person for the first time, use their first and last name. So what does that mean? If I were to do an interview, an analysis on Miss Barron, just an interview on her, this is how I would do it, okay? This is what AP style requires for you to do it, okay? So you were to say, Lily Barron, Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School, you would not say Miss Lily, okay? Courtesy, those are what's called courtesy titles, okay? Courtesy titles are not used in AP style. So instead, I would say Lily Barron, Sierra Nevada Academy Charter School teacher, is a great musician here at Snacks, okay? And then after I address her by her full title, in commas in between there, then I would just use her last name throughout the rest of the article. Barron is a great musician. Barron did this. Barron said this. Barron is involved with a lot of activities throughout our school. Make sense? Numbers. Numbers 1 through 9 are always spelled out, okay? Numbers 10 and above, all the way until infinity, after 9, you always write out, okay? So you never start a sentence with a numeral unless it's a year. So if I were to say 2013 was a great year, you obviously would use numerals for 2013. But if I were to say 3 baseball players are going to the park to play baseball, okay, 3 baseball players going to the park, you would write out the word 3, okay? Percentages. Okay, percent. You always write out the word percent. Okay, just think about it like that. It's easy. Just always write out the word percent. Punctuation. So, periods are always within quotation marks. Okay, so notice how the comma is also in the quotation mark. Okay, so notice how the witness said, comma, space, quotation, I saw the accident, period, quotation marks. Does that make sense? All right, so we talked a little bit about like having periods that are not outside of the quotation marks. But if you have a full sentence within the quotes, then you always put a period in the middle, at the end, right before the quotation marks. So I saw the accident, comma, quotation marks, the witness said. Notice that because it wasn't a full sentence there, that the writer deemed it important to say the witness said. After said, you would put the period. Does that make sense? So if I were to say, the 49ers are a great football team, comma, quotation marks, Pierce Baker said. Because if I were to say, the 49ers are a great football team, period, quotation marks, Pierce Baker said, you wouldn't put 2 periods back to back there. Does that make sense? You have to put a comma there because you don't know who said it unless you put Pierce Baker said, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. So in a simple series, do not use a comma before a conjunction. So conjunction, essentially an example of that would be here. She likes sushi, pizza, and tamales. Okay, so if you're listing out something, then that second list would not have a comma after that. Okay, so what does that mean? If I were to say I like football, I I like football, reading, and food. Okay? I would put football, comma, reading, no comma, and food, period. Does that make sense? States. If you are writing about a state and not mentioning a city, spell it out. So these are the kind of same concepts that we talked about. You notice there's a theme here from months and years and dates, excuse me. So if we're talking about states, you would always write out the state if you're not mentioning the city. So if I were to say, I live in Nevada, you write out the word Nevada. However, if I were to say Las Vegas, Nevada, I would say Las Vegas spelled out and then N-E-V, period. Make sense? So when you include the city name and state together, the state needs to be abbreviated, like we just said. Those are some examples for you guys. So time. Unless you have a specific time, just say 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., okay? Don't have those semicolon 00, okay? But if you're saying a specific time like 1:35 a.m., then you would obviously have a semicolon in between there, okay? Notice how p.m. and a.m. is undercased. So let's get into some common mistakes. So toward, downward, upward, forward, backward does not have the S there, okay? You might think that towards, downwards, no, it's just toward, downward, okay? Avoid use of the word here, okay? Because it's kind of generic, meaning that it's kind of can be misleading if I just say here, okay? Try to, as much as possible in journalism and in your writing, provide detailed information about when talking about location, okay? So when you're referring to numbers, okay, use more than compared to over. For instance, if I were to say 13 is more than 12, but I don't say 13 over 12, okay? Because then you're talking about fractions and that doesn't make sense, okay? So let's go into more examples here. So on Saturday, May 14th, the team celebrated its second place win in the tournament. Can you guys take a second here, take about 30 seconds to figure out what are the errors here? So on Saturday, okay, Saturday, remember, we'd always write out the word of the day of the week, okay? So Saturday should not be abbreviated. 14th, the TH should not be there. The team celebrated its second place in the tournament. The ND should not be there. And you'll see that in the next slide. Saturday, May 14th, the team celebrated its second place win in the tournament. Okay, this next one, I will say out the sentence and I'll stop it, and then you guys can skip ahead if you like. So the plane will arrive at the Albany, New York airport at 3 p.m. The plane will arrive at the Albany, New York airport at 3 p.m. Notice what needs to be changed there. So New York obviously needs to be abbreviated, and 3 should not have the 00 semicolon after that. And 3 p.m., like we said before, is undercased. Okay, so let's do one more. The theater department will perform Pride and Prejudice at great play, great movie, at 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday, October 21st. There's a lot of things wrong with that sentence. Tickets are $5 at the door. Cool. So the theater department will perform Pride and Prejudice at 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday. Remember what we do for titles. October 21st, remember what needs to be, why ST not needs to be there. And remember what needs to happen with dollars. The theater department will perform Pride and Prejudice in quotations at 2:30 p.m. Okay, on Friday, October 21st. Notice how October is abbreviated and ST is not there after 21st. The tickets are $5 at the door, okay? $5 is written in numerals, okay? You don't spell out the word dollars, okay? You put the dollar sign before the numeral, okay? I hope everyone enjoyed this activity, and if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me or Miss Berry or Miss Lake, and I would be happy to oblige. Stay safe, everyone.